They thought we were idiots. They thought we'd never figure it out. Now they're about to learn what happens when you give humans a weapon and think we won't use it. The bridge of the Revenant hummed with quiet anticipation. Admiral Elias Voss stood at the command platform, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the tactical holodisplay. The Adrainian fleet was approaching Dead Sky Sector. 40 warships. Veteran crews. Confident. Arrogant. They had no idea. Voss turned his head slightly. Time to intercept? 17 minutes, Admiral, Lieutenant Kane replied. Adrainians are running standard formation, 3 wedge lines, no electronic warfare engaged. They think this will be a slaughter. Voss smirked. They're not wrong. The bridge crew chuckled darkly. The Revenant and its fleet were hidden in the debris field, their systems running cold, invisible to conventional scans. The Adrainians would never see them coming. Commander Wren, Voss said. What's your assessment? Wren, a former scrapyard engineer turned tactical officer, grinned. They're still using Adrainian standard battle doctrine, predictable, sluggish. Their ships aren't designed for rapid course correction. We, on the other hand, don't have that problem. Correct, Voss said. And the moment they realize it, it'll be too late. 16 minutes until contact, Kane updated. They still don't see us. Voss took a breath. It always came down to moments like this. The quiet before the storm. He had fought too many battles, rebuilt too many ships, seen too many of his people dismissed by aliens who thought humans were beneath them. They had been sold junk, treated like fools, scorned as lesser beings. But humans? Humans adapted. Humans improvised. Humans turned mistakes into lessons and lessons into weapons. And tonight, humanity was teaching the galaxy its first real lesson. Kane, Voss said, run it. The lieutenant nodded and keyed a command into the tactical station. Every ship in the human fleet activated at once. From the void of dead sky, the shadows came alive. Engines flared, power surged, weapon systems locked into place. The Adrainians didn't even have time to react before the first hyper-accelerated kinetic rounds tore through the lead destroyers. Direct hits. Enemy ships are breaking formation. They're scrambling. No coordinated response yet. Jamming fields engaged. Their long-range comms are fried. The Adrainians panicked. Their warships, built for grand naval engagements, suddenly found themselves in a knife fight. The human ships moved too fast, struck too hard, vanished too quickly. Xerxes' face appeared on the comms. The Adrainian High Commander looked confused, then furious. You think you can? Voss cut the feed. Commander Wren, deploy the Havoc Inspector to their flanks. Target propulsion systems. I don't want them escaping. Yes, sir. The battle tilted from an engagement into a slaughter. Missiles swarmed through the black, tracking Adrainian vessels as they tried to maneuver, but their bulky designs made them easy prey. Human ships dove between them, cutting through their defenses with surgical precision. Adrainian bridge crews screamed as their hulls were breached. Fires erupted across their warships as their power grids overloaded from human-directed feedback pulses. 30% of the enemy fleet is disabled. Their flagship is trying to pull back. Voss's smile was cold. Not today. Bring us in, he ordered. We're boarding that ship. The Revenant surged forward, cutting across the debris field like a predator moving in for the kill. Inside the Adrainian flagship, chaos ruled. Officers shouted conflicting orders, their battle net flooded with static. Xerxes gritted his fangs, his crest flaring. This isn't possible. They're nothing but scavengers. A junior officer stammered. Sir, their weapons, our weapons, they're better than ours. Xerxes turned slowly, as if the realization physically hurt. We gave them our old warships, and they made them stronger. The hull shuddered. Explosions rocked the bridge. Human boarding teams have breached the lower decks. Security forces. Gunfire. Screams. The sounds of men dying. Xeris turned, gripping the command rail. Prepare the self-destruct. We won't let them take this ship. Too late. The doors exploded inward. Smoke. Shattered steel. A dozen armored human soldiers entered like wraiths. And at their head, Voss. His cold blue eyes met Xeris's, filled with quiet, terrifying amusement. The room froze. Xeris's hands trembled. His men looked to him, but no orders came. Voss strolled forward, stepping over a dead Adranian officer, his heavy boots echoing in the silent chamber. He pulled a sidearm from his belt, inspecting it like it was just another day at work. I believe you were trying to leave, he said casually. No one moved. No one breathed. Funny thing about humans. Voss turned the gun over in his hand. You give us a problem, we solve it. You give us a challenge, we break it. You give us your broken-down warships, and we turn them into something that can rip you apart. He leveled the gun at Xeris's forehead. You should have done your research. Xeris trembled. He had never feared a human before. He had never imagined one could stand before him like this, calm, unshaken, victorious. We surrender, Xeris croaked. Voss raised an eyebrow. Do you? The Adranian swallowed. Yes. The humans behind Voss laughed. One muttered, that's cute. Voss let out a slow breath, shaking his head. Surrendering implies you have something left to negotiate with. Xeris's face fell. The gunshot echoed across the bridge. The Adranian command crumpled. The hierarchy's fleet, once feared across the galaxy, was finished. Voss turned to his second-in-command. Signal the fleet. No survivors. We send a message tonight. Rin nodded. It'll be done. Voss stared out the viewport, watching as the last Adranian ships burned. They thought we'd never figure it out. Now the whole galaxy will know. The battlefield was silent, save for the distant hum of cooling wreckage. The once mighty Adranian fleet, 40 warships strong, now lay in burning ruin across the void. Smoke and debris drifted through the battlefield like the ghosts of the fallen. A massacre. One-sided, brutal, and absolute. Admiral Elias Voss stood at the bridge of the Revenant, his hands resting on the holotable, his expression unreadable. Victory was already certain. The fleet had done its job. The enemy had been gutted. Now came the part he truly enjoyed. Survivors, he asked, his voice sharp. Lieutenant Kane's fingers danced across the console. Minimal. Adranians abandoned 3 crippled destroyers. Crew scuttled escape pods before we could intercept. Let them run, Voss murmured. They'll spread the right kind of fear. Ren, his second-in-command, smirked. Adranian High Command will soil themselves when they hear about this. Their golden fleet, wiped out by a bunch of primitive scavengers. Voss exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. No, Ren. They won't believe it. Not at first. Arrogance is a funny thing. They'll call this a fluke, an accident, a momentary lapse. Then they'll send another fleet. Stronger. Heavier. And they'll make sure the next time, we have no chance. A cold silence settled over the bridge. Everyone knew what he said was true. The hierarchy never accepted losses. When they were wounded, they retaliated like a cornered beast. Kane frowned. If they send a bigger force. They will, Voss interrupted. Then what's the move? Voss leaned over the table, his eyes locked on the flickering map of the sector. We don't wait for them to come to us. A murmur spread through the bridge. It was one thing to win a defensive battle. It was another to take the fight into enemy territory. Rin folded his arms. You want to hit them before they regroup. Voss's smirk was razor-sharp. We already started the war. Might as well finish it on our terms. Kane hesitated. We have the element of surprise, but attacking now? That's high risk. Voss straightened. Let me make this clear, this isn't about defense anymore. This is about making sure they never see us as weak again. If we wait, they bring overwhelming force. If we strike now, we hit them where they least expect it. We don't let them recover. We don't let them think. We don't let them breathe. Ren's grin widened. I like the sound of that. A warning chime rang from the comm station. Kane glanced at the flashing alert, his expression darkening. Admiral, incoming transmission. Priority 1. Origin, Adranian High Command. The bridge went still. Voss nodded. Put it through. The hollow screen flickered to life, revealing a towering Adranian figure in deep red ceremonial robes. The golden insignia of the hierarchy gleamed on his shoulder, a high marshal. One of their top brass. His feline features were tight with barely restrained fury, his violet eyes burning with disbelief. This is High Marshal Vecran of the Adranian hierarchy, the voice growled. Identify yourself, human. Voss clasped his hands behind his back, unfazed. Admiral Elias Voss, Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Vecran's jaw tightened. You are responsible for this massacre. Voss tilted his head slightly. Massacre? No, Marshal. That was a correction. The Adranian's ears twitched, his expression darkening. You do not understand what you've done. Voss let out a short, humorless chuckle. I understand perfectly. You thought we were nothing. You thought you could sell us your garbage and laugh while we wasted away. You thought you could raid our colonies without consequence. He leaned forward slightly, his voice turning lethal. You thought wrong. Vecran's expression twisted in anger. You are a fool if you think this battle has changed anything. You have only ensured humanity's destruction. The hierarchy will send a force that will wipe your species from existence. Voss arched an eyebrow. That's cute. But you're missing one little detail. And what is that? Vecran snarled. Voss's grin was predatory. We're coming for you first. The Adranian's face froze. His pupils contracted. His composure cracked for just a second. Then the transmission cut. Silence. Kane let out a low whistle. Think he took the hint? Ring grinned. I think he pissed himself. Voss turned to his crew, his voice sharp. We don't give them time to retaliate. We take the fight straight to them. If we let them regroup, we lose our only advantage. Kane's fingers flew over the console. Adranian naval yards are stationed in the Norix system, 70 light-years from here. That's their primary shipbuilding sector in this quadrant. If we hit it now, we cripple their supply chain. Voss nodded. That's the target. We move in tonight. Ring clenched his fists. So, what's the battle plan? Voss smirked. Simple. We do what we do best. We break their toys. The bridge came alive with a frenzy of movement. Orders were issued. Weapons were prepped. The fleet repositioned. The Revenant's engines roared to life, and across the sector, human warships turned their bows toward Adranian space. They hadn't just survived the first strike. They were about to deliver the last. The fleet slipped through the void like a pack of predators. Silent. Calculated. Deadly. The Adranian shipyards loomed ahead, a sprawling mass of reinforced docking stations, fuel depots, and manufacturing hubs suspended in the black. It was the beating heart of the hierarchy's war machine. Cripple this, and the Adranians wouldn't just be weakened. They'd be finished. Admiral Elias Voss stood at the bridge of the Revenant, arms folded, gaze locked onto the glowing tactical display. Every human warship in the fleet had taken position, hidden beneath the electromagnetic shadow of a nearby gas giant. The Adranians had no idea they were here. Status? Kane's voice was crisp. Enemy force detected, 33 ships, mixed cruisers, and patrol craft. Main defense grid operational, but their sensor sweep is irregular. They're not expecting an attack. Ren's grin was razor-sharp. We're going to teach them about expectations. Voss's voice was quiet, deliberate. We do this fast. No drawn-out engagements. We hit them, we burn them, we leave nothing standing. Any ship that tries to escape gets turned into wreckage. A cold silence settled over the bridge. No one doubted the mission. The Adranians had called for extermination. This was the answer. Kane exhaled. All ships report ready. Voss nodded once. Execute. The darkness came alive. Human warships surged from their hiding places, burning toward the enemy station with pinpoint precision. Within seconds, the first strike landed. Explosions rippled across the docks as missile barrages ripped through unshielded structures, sending debris spiraling into the abyss. The first wave of enemy cruisers scrambled into defensive formation, too slow. Open fire. The Revenant's main guns erupted, unleashing a devastating kinetic barrage that tore through the lead Adranian destroyer. Armor buckled. Hull split open like paper. Fire and bodies spilled into space. They're returning fire. Bright lances of plasma streaked toward the human fleet, but they missed. Adranian weapons were designed for slower, predictable enemies. Human ships moved differently. Second wave, move in. The Spectre and Havoc cut through the enemy ranks like blades, their thrusters allowing them to change course in ways no Adranian vessel could match. The hierarchy's formations collapsed under the assault. Voss's voice was calm, cutting through the chaos. Tell me when their command ship tries to run. Kane's hands flickered across his console. Scanning, there. Rear battleship attempting retreat vector. Voss's smile was thin. Not today. The Revenant adjusted course, thrusters burning hot. The enemy battleship had barely broken formation before human torpedoes tore through its engines. Voss activated the comms. Adranian Command, this is Admiral Voss. I suggest you stop running. A flickering holofeed appeared, revealing a desperate Adranian officer. Smoke filled his bridge, his face twisted in disbelief. This isn't possible. You're humans. Voss tilted his head. Funny thing about humans. We tend to rewrite the rules when they don't work for us. The Adranian clenched his jaw. We will not surrender. Voss sighed, shaking his head. Then you'll burn. The holofeed cut. The Revenant's weapons roared. The enemy command ship was reduced to nothing. Across the battlefield, the last remnants of the Adranian fleet collapsed. Some ships tried to flee. None made it. Ren exhaled. That's it. They're gone. Voss stared out at the burning remains of the shipyard, at the thousands of wrecked vessels, the shattered defenses. The hierarchy's war machine was no more. Send a message to the galaxy, Voss said. Tell them the Adranians made us scavengers. And now we've taken everything from them. The transmission went out. Across the stars, everyone heard it. And everyone understood. The comms were silent. The battlefield was quiet. Not a single Adranian vessel remained. Their war machine, their arrogance, their legacy, reduced to drifting wreckage. A graveyard of fire and metal. The human fleet held formation, their weapons still hot, their shields still raised. The job was done. The enemy had been erased. Admiral Elias Voss exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the ruins of the once mighty shipyard. This was no longer just a battle. This was a reckoning. Lieutenant Kane's voice broke the silence. Transmission from the capital world. It's them. Voss straightened. Put it through. The holofeed flickered to life. A massive war room, golden banners draped across polished steel walls, the insignia of the Adranian hierarchy emblazoned above the High Council's chamber. Seated at the center was Supreme Chancellor Virus, his reptilian features locked in a forced mask of composure. The silence stretched. Virus's claws flexed. Admiral Voss. I expected someone different. Voss's tone was unreadable. Likewise. I expected the Supreme Chancellor of a galactic empire to look a little less desperate. Virus's nostrils flared. You think this is a victory? This is an insult. A mistake. You have struck a wound upon the hierarchy, but we will recover. We will rebuild. And when we do... Stop. Voss's voice was soft, but it cut through the Chancellor's words like a blade. You won't rebuild anything. Your fleets are gone. Your shipyards are ash. Your best commanders are corpses drifting through the void. Virus's throat tightened. Voss leaned in slightly. Here's what happens next. You surrender. Unconditionally. Your remaining fleets? They are ours now. Your colonies? Under our control. Your empire? No longer exists. You are done. History. Forgotten. The chamber erupted into shouts of protest. Virus's eyes burned with fury. You would dare demand the submission of the hierarchy? Voss smirked. I'm not demanding anything. I'm giving you a choice. Surrender and live. Fight and you will be wiped from existence. The Supreme Chancellor's claws dug into the armrest. And if I refuse? Voss leaned back, voice calm. Then I burn your homeworld next. The chamber fell silent. Virus stiffened. You wouldn't. Voss's eyes darkened. You sold us scrap, thinking it would keep us weak. You raided our colonies, thinking we wouldn't fight back. And now, when you stand at the edge of extinction, you still think this is a negotiation? He let the words settle before continuing. I am not here to bargain. You kneel, or you burn. The council members whispered, frantic. Virus remained still. He wanted to believe humanity wasn't ruthless enough to finish what they started. Voss gave him no time to think. Clock's ticking, Chancellor. I need an answer. Virus's shoulders slumped. His eyes, once sharp with arrogance, were now dull with bitter realization. He had no fleets left. No allies. No hope. We surrender. Voss exhaled, a slow, satisfied breath. Good. The transmission ended. The bridge of the Revenant remained still. They had done it. The war was over. Kane shook his head in disbelief. We just ended an empire. Rin folded his arms. And the galaxy just realized that humanity isn't a footnote anymore. Voss turned to his officers, his voice steady. Send out a sector-wide broadcast. The Adranian hierarchy has fallen. The humans of Earth now rule where they once stood. The fleet adjusted course. The next step had already begun. They had started as scavengers. Now, they were conquerors.